Hello, I'm Danny Cook, and welcome to the second episode of HalfTimeCuppa's Halftime Podcast, a 15-minute show where we discuss just one footballing topic in as much detail as possible. So joining me, we have Charlie Pumfrey, a Brighton fan.
Yeah, that may come to hurt me, that fact, at some point today.
Yeah, well, I mean, as the viewers, the listeners will soon find out. And joining Charlie, we have Ese Agboaye. How are you doing, Ese?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Good. That's our panel for today, Ese and Charlie. And in case you may have missed the first show, which you can, of course, catch up on now, and we talked about Manchester United last week, and Charlie was on the show last week. How did you find it, Charlie?
I think it was good. I think I won the poll as well.
Yes, I believe you did. Poll's still running. As of time of recording, you won that poll. So you won that battle. That's one to your tally, I suppose, Charlie. Okay, so on to today's format. Panelists will be debating a topic. Each panelist will have to either argue in favour or against the topic. Now's the time that I toss the toy. Let's try that again. Now is the time that I'll toss the coin to decide who will be in favour of whether Brighton will survive this season's Premier League campaign. So I will toss the coin. Charlie, as you won last week and as you are a Brighton fan as well, you get the choice of heads or tails. Which one are you going with?
I'm going to go heads. Let's go heads.
Okay, it is tails. So, Ese, the ball is in your court now. What one are you going with?
I'm going for against, so I'm going Brighton to go down.
Are you happy with that then, Charlie?
Oh, I am. That's good. It means I can come out of this in a good way.
We're going to start off with Charlie then. As an introductory point, why you think Brighton will stay up this season?
I'm gonna start with a couple of opinions first, and then I'll bring the facts in a minute. My first opinion: we've got a manager who's never been relegated from the Premier League. He's taken two teams. Actually, one of them was new in the Premier League, and the other one as well, pretty new to the Premier League. And at the time of leaving both those clubs, neither was in a relegation zone. His time at Newcastle was very productive. He took a squad which could have been quite poisonous, and he took them up champions, no problem. Went to Norwich, was with them in the Premier League, kept them at 15th, I believe they were, before they sacked him. And then you look at the squad he's got. He's got players with Premier League experience. He's got players like Glenn Murray. He's got players like Steve Sidwell. He's got players like even Shane Duffy, as a youngster, played for Everton in the Premier League. And we've got what every team needs at this end of the table. We've got quality. We've got players like Izquierdo, we've got Knockaert, we've got Davy Proper, we've got Pascal Gross. All players that have shown that they have quality at this level. Or, I mean, Knockaert not yet in the Premier League, but has been here as well before. And I think actually, if you look at our squad, it's stronger than that of quite a few of the squads around us. But I think there is enough there to keep us up.
Let's go to Ese then. Ese, Charlie's just mentioned about Chris Hughton having a good record of not being relegated as a Premier League manager. What's your thoughts on that?
I've got to disagree with that because I don't really buy into records coming into game, and given that their next game is Everton away, I know their home crowd, their home support is quite good. But having said that, it's Everton and they're not in the greatest forms themselves, but I'd go for Everton to pick up a win. After Everton is West Ham away, and West Ham's home support is really good. So for that reason, I'm going for Brighton to lose that one as well. If you look at the next game against Southampton, it's not any easier.
I want to bring up a quick fact, just as something else. Stoke City last season, I believe they finished, was it 11th or 12th, or maybe slightly lower? Didn't beat a team outside the bottom six all season and finished relatively mid-table. So games against Everton, games against potentially West Ham or Southampton are important games, don't get me wrong. But the crucial games were games like when we played Newcastle at home a few weeks ago, we won 1-0. When we played West Brom a few weeks before that, we beat them 3-1, I believe it was in the end. And we got a draw away at Watford. And actually, the start that we've had shows that we do have the squad togetherness to actually go to places. At home to Everton in the next game is going to be a difficult game. I think if we come out with a draw, we'll be very happy. I mean, it might be another narrow loss. But you look at when we went to the Emirates recently to Arsenal, we put in a really strong performance, and actually on another day we might have got a point there. And we've shown a lot of positives. Manchester City, first day of the season, we didn't concede until the 70th minute. There's a real solidity about our back line that everyone just seems to deem that, our right back's 37, so he's no good. Our left back's unproven in the Premier League. Lewis Dunk has been inconsistent. I think there's players in that squad that are actually quite underrated, and actually that they will come through in big games.
Just to play devil's advocate on that, Charlie, just to clarify, Stoke finished 13th last season, 44 points, 10 more points than relegated Hull City. What do you think is the big difference? Because last season, off the top of my head, probably one of the lowest point scoring seasons in
No,
terms of the
I
three
agree.
relegated, other than obviously your Derby counties and your extreme teams. But as a bottom three, they were very low point scoring. I mean, Watford 40 points just, Burnley 40 points just. I mean, aside from the bottom three, there isn't really much in terms of points on the board. What do you think makes Brighton different this season then?
Well, for me, what makes us different is the fact we've got players that can create chances. And at the moment, our real issue has been putting those chances away. And that's been for a mixture of what I thought was a controversial ban for Tom Hemed. And then you look at players like Glenn Murray have been injured, Sam Baldock's been injured. And actually, maybe a lack of investment comes into that, but that's more of a negative than a positive. The point is we have players that can dig us out in games that are important. We have players like Izquierdo, like Solly March, like Knockaert, that can come big in big games.
Let's bring in Ese now. Ese, you obviously chose in favour of them going down. Charlie's just rattled off a couple of names there. Knockaert, for example, Marsh. Do you think that these sort of players are going to do enough to keep Brighton up this season?
When I think about Anthony Knockaert in the Premier League for Brighton, my mind goes back to Adel Taarabt when he got promoted with QPR. I mean, he was amazing in the Championship, but as soon as he came to the Premier League, he hardly done anything. Unless there's some sort of miracle, I honestly don't think that Anthony Knockaert will actually make a staple in the Premier League.
So are you dismissing him on the basis that Adel Taarabt didn't perform?
No, what I'm saying is I'm not sure whether he'll step up to the plate.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfectly fine. I was about to say it's very difficult. You can't start saying because one player that was from a similar.
No.
To be fair as well, Knockaert, I believe he's had his shot at the Premier League in the past. It didn't quite come to fruition. Would you say that makes any difference at all there, Charlie?
You look at his time at Leicester. He was in a position actually in right midfield with the player of the year in the next season in Riyad Mahrez. And Leicester, he was offered a new contract in the summer that he left for Standard Liège, and he said, no, I want to go and play first team football. And then he came to Brighton in that January, and he became part of the family. After the way we treated him, he said that he never wants to leave the club. And he's a player, he won Championship Player of the Year last season, which means nothing in the Premier League, but it means that he's obviously a player of real quality. And I think he's the sort of player that might take a little bit of time to get back to his best. But once he gets into this team and gets really bedded in his position, I think he can make a difference. Maybe not against the bigger teams, but definitely against teams around us.
Ese, obviously Brighton have had I would say, pretty decent start overall to the Premier League. Probably outperformed some people's expectations. They've outperformed my expectations, if I'm brutally honest. And that's no disrespect to Brighton, but they've played pretty well in those games, as Charlie's mentioned, against Arsenal, for example. Do you think that they can carry this on throughout the season, or is it just a case of first couple of games and they'll start losing momentum midway through?
Going back to their fixture list, they have like Everton, West Ham, teams around them will be vying to take points. They play at home to Everton. Mm-hmm. I'm not expecting them to pick maximum points at home, which is rather controversial, but then again, I am playing against. West Ham will also be looking to take points off them too. So in terms of going up, I don't feel they can do it at this stage. If they do manage to stay up come April, May, then fair play to them. But at the moment, I just don't see it.
Charlie, I've just found a really interesting stat. Brighton have the joint lowest tally of yellow cards this season. So how important do you feel discipline will be to your side potentially staying up?
Well, I mean, it's a hallmark, I think, of most Chris Hughton sides. And you look, actually, we've got players in our team, players like Lewis Dunk actually in the Premier League. When I noticed that he got a lot of yellow cards. Apparently, he hasn't picked up a yellow card in 16 matches now, which shows a maturity in some of our players. And I think there's not masses you can read into that stat, because there are going to be games now coming up, like the Everton home game, where we are going to have to maybe make a few more challenges that might be a little bit naughty. Actually, for me, Chris Hughton's always had his defence. The defence has always been well drilled. Maybe we've conceded a few sloppy goals, but it's never been many. It's never been enough to cost us points when we've been in a good position. For me, our defence is where we can build from and allow players like Davy Proper, like Pascal Gross to grow. I think it's just going to be a matter of seeing how we do in these next 4 games, which are actually against teams in the bottom 10.
I've found a really interesting other stat as well, and there's 2 sides you can go with this. I'm going to go back to you, Charlie, first, then I'm going to go to Ese to read the other side. So big chances missed. Brighton are at the very bottom of that list, only missing 1 big chance. Now, Charlie, is that therefore a positive that you're seeing that your side is, compared to the other teams, so Manchester City are deemed to have missed the most big chances this season, missing 15. Well, this is so far, obviously, and you guys have only missed 1 big chance. Do you think that's a positive?
I mean, it is a positive. It shows that I don't know how many chances we've had in total, so it's difficult to say. It could have been 1 out of potentially 4. Actually, our going forward, we have been pretty good at times. I think in the Bournemouth game, we struggled a little bit to create chances, but we took one. We took a real good one out with Solly March. I mean, I'm going to be honest. We've got the players, and it's going to come to January, I think, where we're going to have to go out and buy a striker. I mean, we failed to get 2 on deadline day. There was Florian Andone from Deportivo, and then there was Vincent Janssen from Tottenham. It showed that they recognise there's a problem going at the front, and I think that will be the difference. If we do go and get a real top class striker, well, a top class for us striker, then I think we will be safe. I think we will have enough to keep ourselves in the division.
The SA, the flip side, obviously, chances created, the bottom of big chances missed. Nothing on how many chances they've actually created. Do you think, therefore, it could be a case of they've missed maybe one big chance and they've only created 3 or something like that? Do you think that there's much you can read into that stat?
Yeah, and I'd say that because having created that little chances, it really doesn't tell me that they can stay up. Although it could be worse. They could be Crystal Palace haven't scored a single goal.
That's true. I want to know, Charlie, your thoughts. Chris Hughton, what characteristics does he have that for you means he will keep them up this season?
Well, for me, he's a man of real high tactical awareness. Actually, I think he's underrated somewhat. I think he'll get the backing at Brighton he didn't get at Norwich or Newcastle. If you look at the squad he's assembled there, he's put faith in younger players like Lewis Dunk and Solly March, and they've repaid it. We've made good transfers. If you look at Pascal Gross, he's ran the furthest distance most weeks. He's created the most chances in the team, and he created the most chances last season. We saw that. We brought him in. And I think if we can keep building like this, game by game, I think that will be the difference between staying in the Premier League and going down.
SA, same sort of question. What characteristics do you see in Hughton that could potentially be a cause for them going down?
Going back to his time at Newcastle United, he didn't do too well with them getting sacked in December of 2010. If they continue to get bad results, then the same thing is just going to happen.
I have to disagree. You ask any Newcastle fan, they'll tell you that he did a good job at Newcastle.
That's fair enough in comment, really. But then again, I'd probably liken him with Mark Warburton during his, I think it was his second season with Rangers. Because in his first season, yeah, everyone was giving him all plaudits. But in the second season, he got found out. That's what I think might happen with Chris Hughton. He's a good manager, but all respect, I feel as though he doesn't have what it takes to cut it in top league.
Are you saying it's in his second season in the Premier League, or this being his second season? Because this is his 4th season with us, I think. So I think he's so ingrained in the club culture. I can understand from an outside point of view why you think that. It's a perfectly fine opinion because the last time he was in the Premier League was a few years ago. But I think you can't get past the fact that he didn't fail with either of the clubs he was at.
Let's find out what the general public have in terms of their views on this topic.
Will Brighton survive the relegation scrap this year?
No, because they're way too defensive.
I can't see it happening. I think they're sort of among around about 5 clubs that look like they probably are more likely to go down than stay up. I think they're probably one of the most likely to go down.
Personally, I think no. I don't think they've got the scoring power to do it.
The full-time whistle has just blown on this debate. Don't forget, you can decide who the winner is by casting your vote below. There should be a couple of polls down there. There should be one where you get to decide which way you'd vote in terms of in favour or against, whether Brighton will stay up this season, or alternatively, there should be another one down there as well with your vote for either Charlie or Ese as the winner of this debate. So 2 polls there potentially to vote on. Be sure to check out the various other pieces of content we have around our site, especially our football predictor. Charlie mentioned and Ese mentioned the Brighton-Everton game. That will be on this week's football predictor. So please make sure you fill in your predictions for that game. Finally, a shout out to today's panelists, Charlie Pumfrey and Ese Agboaye. Thank you very much for giving up your time.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. And thank you, Ese.
Thanks for having me as well.
I've been your host, Danny Cook, and you've been listening to the 2nd episode of the Halftime Podcast.